How are you? And you know what? We are excited that you're back on to talk about another really interesting topic.
So happy to be here, Neil. How are you
Uh,
doing today?
Doing great. Our topic today is we're going to go look at specifically financial planning for veterans, budgeting and saving after service. It's different, right? When you're in the service versus once you leave the service, when it comes to keeping your budget, meals, all that.
So it's very structured when you're in the service because you get the housing allowance if you live off post. You get a certain amount of allowances for different things. So you can, if you do it correctly, you can sort of budget that out and make sure. Like when I was in the service and lived off post, I always tried to stay one rank below where I was as far as my monthly mortgage or whatever it was, and that would free up a little extra money that I could use for what have you. And so I mean there's certain things, and plus you know exactly what you're getting every month, every paycheck. You know when you're getting paid. It's very scheduled. Um, and then yeah, once you get out, depending on your job, hopefully you continue whatever budgeting practices you had before. And if you didn't have budgeting practices, hopefully you start learning some and putting that into place. And I would say the biggest thing that any service member has to take into consideration is before you get out you want to have a plan, a financial plan. Pay off the debt you have. Put yourself in a position to where you can come out and you don't have to worry about necessarily money is the first thing with a mountain of debt that you got to try to pay off.
Do you think that the military teaches you to have structure even when it comes to budgeting and balancing your checkbook and teach you those financial skills that we don't get taught in college? I mean, high school or college or anytime?
I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to caveat it with there are programs in place that you can send service members to get that education. And then I've seen great NCOs, non-commissioned officers, put together classes with financial advisors or their own knowledge or whatever to teach their soldiers how to do it. So it's there, and I've seen people go above and beyond and do great things to help their service members understand the financial piece of it. But a lot of times, I can't say that people are going to take those classes. People are going to go get that education. It's unfortunate, and in the long run, makes things harder, I think, on themselves. But hopefully, we can get more and more of the young service members that go to these things and learn, especially those that come out and join the military at 17, 18, maybe never had a job, don't know how to live on their own. Taking these types of classes right up front will be a huge benefit for you.
But you think it's easy and structured, especially if you're on the base, right?
Well, it's there. Yeah, the classes are there.
Now, what
They have.
about you kind of structured? You know what your allowances, your meal
Oh
plan,
yeah.
all the different things. It's almost like college in a way, right? Until you get,
I don't know. There were days in college I didn't know if I had enough money for things, but the military, you know what your pay is. Everybody knows what your pay is because it's publicized. But you have it as long as you're living by the right budget, you're going to be fine. When you get out, it's the same thing. You get a job, you're going to know what your pay is, unless you're an hourly employee and you might not get 40 hours one week, you might get 20 the next. Who knows? But if you're going into a job where you have a dedicated salary or whatever, you know what your money's going to be, and you should be able to stay regimented in that sense.
and the pension's nice, right? If you do retire with a pension, especially early in that transition period, because you at least have money coming in.
Oh, absolutely. The pension is great, especially if you look to the idea of being an entrepreneur, because then you have that little extra money coming in that, you don't have to necessarily worry about the next paycheck from the entrepreneur business you're starting, at least when you first start out, right? But they've also changed the military retirement system. So in the next couple of years, we're going to start having service members leave the military who at retirement age that don't have the standard retirement that I do and those before me have, but instead they have the 401k system that's been set up. So it'll be a little bit different in that sense.
I find it so fascinating when you talk about how it just works, especially with the pension. But I guess it teaches you. But then you look at other retirement plans. When do you plan on retiring? Because what is the average military person retire at what age?
So if you go in at 18, you can essentially retire right now at 38 with a pension, and then from there you got to figure out the next step. Now, that's a great point though to take into consideration with retirees because If you go get another job, you have to remember that for the most part, in most cases, your retirement's going to be taxed as well. So it's potentially going to put you in a different tax bracket, something you need to take into account. Because if you don't, you're going to be quite surprised.
And that other tax bracket, that's why a business is a much better idea.
Yeah, yeah,
Because you can at least have some tax breaks versus
it,
imagine that and imagine getting hit from every end. And does that hurt you having a pension with your taxes, or is that not?
it can. I mean, if you're not paying attention, it can. And I think there's also a learning curve, you know. So I have friends, and even myself, that first year out, you come tax time, you're like, whoa, I didn't count on that. But so we had to pay. It was the first time we paid in forever. So there are some differences, and it's things you have to adjust, you have to take into account, and then that's why getting yourself financially straight before you get out and building a little nest egg, if you can, is also beneficial because then you can recover from something like that pretty quickly and adjust and move on.
All right. Well, the best place to go is vetsospodcast.com. Appreciate it, Shawn. Always great information and look forward to talking again next week. All right.